Hi! Welcome back to my channel. If you're new around here, tervetuloa, welcome. I'm Pinja, aka Pinja I'm a small designer here in Finland. On this video, I'm gonna show how you can make my latest pattern design, the Traveler Cape. So this specific pattern was also a custom order, so that is why there is embroidery on it. And I am very happy how it looks. I am definitely going to make the same cape for myself, maybe in pink or purple or something. As you can see, I very much like pink and purple and lavender, and yeah, so definitely gonna make the cape in my colors. So without further ado, I'm almost have learned how to say that damn word. Without further ado, anyways, let's go do the sewing. Okay, so this is how the finished embroidery is looking now. You should start the sewing process by first attaching all the interfacing on the marked areas, but leave out all the seam allowances without any interfacing. Start by marking the pocket placement first with the chalk and then with a thread. The thread will help that you won't lose any of the markings if the chalk rubs off. Here we have the inner and the outer pocket and also the welt piece. So here you will put the outer pocket and here you will put the inner pocket. The welt will go over here. And this is where your hand will go inside the pocket. Next step, I highly recommend first hand stitching everything on place before you actually sew any of the pocket pieces. Because even though this pocket may seem a bit difficult and daunting, hand sewing everything will make it a lot easier. Both of the pocket pieces and the welt have now been sewn onto the cape using 1 cm seam allowances and ending the sewing on the marked areas on the cape. Now it's time to cut open the pocket. This part may feel kind of scary. I have been a seamstress 10 years and this is something that still makes me very nervous. But just stay true to the markings that you have done and you will be just fine. The scary part has now been done. And you can turn all the pocket pieces inside the cape. You may have to wiggle all the pieces a bit, especially if you're using wool that is a bit thicker here. But as long as you have done everything like you have marked, everything should look exactly right. After you have turned everything inside, you can use a bit of steam, but be careful with the steam because wool can shrink if you use it too much. Next step is to sew the side seams of the pocket welt. Here you can see the tiny triangles and all the seams of the pocket. You start from here and then you go all the way around the pocket and end on the other side of the welt where there is another tiny triangle. Here we have the finished pocket. This is how it should look on the inside and on the outside. This pocket may seem very difficult for a beginner, so I do recommend maybe making a test try on another fabric, just in case if you're doing this for the first time. Now it's time to assemble the hood. You can cut these tiny slits on the straight piece and then pin the pieces together. This will help the sewing process a lot. Top stitch the hood seams on both sides. Assemble also the hood lining and then attach hood and the hood lining together. This is how your finished hood should be looking right now. You can use steam to make the hood edge really crisp, but again, don't use too much steam because wool can shrink under too much heat and steam. Next, you can start sewing all the long seams of the cape, but remember to leave out the armholes on the front. Now you can sew the shoulder seams of the cape. Cut tiny triangles on the shoulder seam and then steam the seams open. The tiny triangles will help the seam stay flat. Now you can sew the lower part of the cape onto the upper part of the cape. On the angular back seam, cut a tiny triangle off the seam allowances. This will help the seam allowances lay more flat. Now you can top stitch the seam allowances upwards. He came here and took my sock. What are you doing? Link? Your mousuk. You little rascal. Cut tiny triangles on the armhole shadow piece seam allowances and then steam 1 cm inside. Place the piece on the lining and then top stitch it on place. Sew out the long seams of the lining, leave out the armholes. Also sew together the lower part and the upper part of the cape lining. Sew together the hem facing pieces and then sew them on the lining. Remember to leave a turning hole on the hem. Also sew together the neck facing and the front facing on the shoulder seam and then sew them onto the lining. Sew together the cape, the hood and the lining, and then stay stitch the seam. Sew together the armhole facing and the cape armhole. This part may be a bit tricky to do, so I recommend hand stitching it before actually sewing it if you find it difficult to work when there is a lot of needles. Stay stitch the armhole. Make few protective hand stitches on both ends of the armhole. Sew the lining and the cape together on the hem and on the front seams. Pin everything together and match all the seams. Stay stitch the hemline. This part can be very difficult because you have to kind of move the whole cape very slowly and adjust it many times so you can actually sew it correctly. As you can see here, it's a bit difficult, but I do recommend doing it anyway because it will make the hemline very clean and crisp looking. Here you can see how the hemline is looking. You can now steam it so it looks perfect. Here is the turning hole. And now you can also make tiny little stitches on all of these seams so the lining won't move around. Close the turn hole by hand sewing it. Loosely hand stitch all of these seams together. This will help keep all the parts in correct places, but don't make this stitch too tight, otherwise it will sew through. So this is where we are now. It's almost done. The pockets are done. And the armhole slit thingies are done. Only thing that I need to do now is add the buttons. There is not gonna be like button holes, but there's gonna be like these, I don't know how to say it, like a läppä with the buttons. And then I also going to add some hand stitching here and here to keep the lining in place, and probably also here so the lining also stays here better, and then it will be done. You can use whatever kind of buttons you would like to use for your cape. Here I am covering these plastic buttons with the same fabric as the cape. So first I make tiny triangles on the seam allowances, and then I just hand stitch the fabric over the button. Sew the right sides together on the button pieces using 1 cm seam allowances. Leave open one of the curved edges. Cut the seam allowances as small as possible, but don't cut the seam allowances on the open side. Turn the piece inside out. Push the seam allowances inside the piece and steam it. Then hand sew the opening and top stitch the whole piece. Make buttonholes on one side of each button piece. Now you can sew all the buttons and the button pieces onto the cape. Please enjoy this amazing and adorable photo of the customer's cat wearing the little scarf I made for them. Okay, so I have to admit that I do really like the green color, and I match it with the green skirt that I have, and now I'm like, should I also make a green one for myself? And I just look how cute it is. It's so adorable. The fabric, if I remember correctly, it was 97 or something like that percent wool, and rest was polyester. So it's very light, but it's super warm. I hope my cheeks are not like very red because it's really warm. And the pockets, I think I put them in a perfect spot because it's like I can touch the end of the pocket. So because I personally I really hate it when the pocket is in wrong place and I have to like reach down the pocket. So here are the armholes, so you can wear the cape with like the arms inside the cape. You can also just like do this, but here are the armholes, and so you have like easy access to the pockets. It also has a really big hood, so you can protect your head with the hood. The pattern is made using these button flaps. I don't know what would be the correct word for this, but like there is two ways that you can make this button placement here. You can do it like in my video here, or you can also just do a regular button holes directly to the cape. And I have marked into the pattern if you wanna like switch between which one you want to make. You can choose, or you can do completely something different, I don't know, or make the cape longer. I think this length is quite perfect with like skirts or dresses, and it doesn't feel like unnecessarily long or too short. So yeah, I am extremely happy how this turned out, and I hope you enjoy this pattern and this video. And if you end up making this cape, I would really love to see how it turned out. So I am always happy to receive photos of your sewing. And also, if you need help or anything, just email me or send me a comment or anything like down below. You can comment and tell how you like. Okay, so thank you so much for watching and see you on my next video. Bye bye! Bye bye!